So I think that's all from me, and Asha, the floor is yours.
Okay, let me start the presentation. Hello, everyone. I'm really glad you found time in this pre-holiday season that is hard for all of us. So I'm really glad you're here. And today I will be talking about very cool sci-fi tropes such as cyborgs, transhumans, posthumans. And since we are in university research group, it's gonna be also a little bit academic, but not too much, because I don't want to, I don't know, go too deep. Maybe later in the questions, we will have time to, you know, develop some issues, some questions. And just so you know, my main research project at the moment is about music, and I'm mostly into the music studies right now. So the way I work is that I see some, I don't know, some phenomena in the music world, and then I start to associate them with different academia or else, like with different, you know, things that I know about. And so that, oh, A looks like B, so this must be connected. And today's presentation is gonna be constructed like this. First, I'm gonna talk about some concepts, and then I'm gonna introduce you, or maybe just, if you know already this artist, I'm just gonna say something about this artist and tell you why I think they are connected with the concept I was just talking about. So this is how it's gonna roll. And we're gonna start with the cyborgs. I mean, this is the most popular concept, I think, the most known in popular culture, the most used in popular culture of our three concepts for today. And technically, the definition of cyborg is that the cyborg is an entity, a conscious entity that has some organic parts and some mechanical parts or cybernetic parts. And so the definition is not really about whether the cyborg is human or machine, like the origin of the cyborg. It can be both. And so like from the most known cyborgs from the popular culture can be divided in these two groups. Like first one, the one you see on the screen right now, those are the cyborgs that were born as human, or they have more human origin than not. And you can see Robocop here, so classic, Motoko Kusanagi from Ghost in the Shell, also classic, the Cyborg from DC, very original name. We also get Cyberpunk 2077 and Star Trek Discovery. And the second group are the machines, like, or artificially constructed humans. So this point of origin is not very organic, we would say. And here I put characters from Detroit Become Human, also from Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica, Terminator, and my favorite Replicants from Blade Runner. And it's, I don't know if you would consider them all as cyborgs. I think I do, because of this kind of, let's say, artificial origin. And the whole point of Blade Runner 2049 is that actually replicants are also, you know, organic beings, and that they can reproduce naturally. And that's what gives them rights, or that's why they feel entitled to have the same rights as humans, which is, of course, not very, you know, utopian vision, that like every conscious being should have rights, but it's not the case. And like, if you look through the cyborg narratives in the popular culture, you could see probably some tropes that are very often used. And one of those tropes is war with the machines, or the trope that somehow becoming machine will result in losing the humanities. This is big dilemma of Motoko Kusanagi from Ghost in the Shell. If I have cybernetic body, am I still human? And you know that the whole philosophical point of the manga and of the movie is about that. And there is also like, if we think about machines that look like humans, there is also this touch of paranoia. They look like us, so they can infiltrate us and destroy us, but they are not us. Ooh, so scary. I like in American academia, in American you know, science fiction scholar things, it's often connected with Cold War and with this paranoia about Russian spies. So, but I think it may be also used in a different way, but this is probably one of the most important, you know, connections that exist in this trope. But the cyborgs aren't inherently bad, and there are also works of culture, texts of culture that explore that. And this whole motive of more human than human in Blade Runner is an example that, you know, just because someone is partially machine, it shouldn't be it shouldn't be, you know, we shouldn't really hold any prejudices because someone has different point of origin that we do. And of course, in the world of Blade Runner, this is not the case, but this is like the point that the movie is making, right? That the replicants and humans are really alike, or maybe replicants are even more human. And in similar works like Detroit game, or like all those Blade Runner-esque things, the figure of the cyborg is also a representation of minority. Is the cyborg is this other that people fear, that people reject, not necessarily for very good reasons. And yeah, and therefore, like, there you can make a connection that the cyborg represents, for example, an oppressed minority like LGBTQ plus minority or racial minority. And here I think it's a good moment to present our first music star of today. Oh, but let's first introduce Janelle Monae, and then I will get back to Cyborg Manifesto. So our first star is Janelle Monae, and she is American singer, rapper, also actress, also activist. And she was born in a working class family. That's important because, like, in her story is the story of success of Black person. That's, you know, that's really important for a Black minority in the United States. This is not really something that we are used to think about. I mean, in Central Europe, because we don't look at the racism, we don't perceive racism the same way, but American racism makes it very difficult for Black people without, you know, capital to make success. And as for Janelle Monae, she mostly does pop. Like she takes a lot of inspiration from R&B, from funk, from hip hop, but I would say that her niche is pop. And she has got 8 Grammy nominations. She is also a really good actress. I recommend the movies that I listed to watch, because she really, yeah, she's also really good at that. And as for her music career, we have, of course, she made more music than that, but those are like the most important projects. So first is the EP Metropolis Suite 1, The Chase. And then we have the continuation of Metropolis storyline, let's say, Archandroid, Electric Lady. And the latest album, Dirty Computer, tells a different story, but also it's also a cybernetic story, a cyborg story. So what are those stories about? So it starts with Suite 1, and Janelle Monae emulates this character of Cindy Mayweather, the droid that was constructed to be a performer and an entertainer. And this droid is, it is accused of falling in love with human. And now the hunters are running after her, after Cindy. And this EP, the first EP, tells the story of the chase. It's also the clip for Many Moons kind of gives a little more visual to the story, but this is mostly it. It's not really a big narrative, but it has a continuation later on. Archandroid is telling, well, the adventures would be a bad word, but the struggle of Cindy up until she gives up on her human lover because she feels like she can do something for the androids. And so she decides to be their angel, their messiah. And so she decides to sacrifice her, personal happiness for other androids. And Electric Lady, it's not as much a story as it is like it gives a flesh to the world. So there are previous stories from Cindy's life, and also there is a really nice detail I like about it, a radio that gives a little bit more context to this world presented in these free CDs, right? And of course, Metropolis is, like the main inspiration is Metropolis of Fritz Lang from 20s, but you can also see in inspirations from Octavia Butler. And I think that Blade Runner played a big part here, because the androids presented by Janelle, like their looks and also the way they are portrayed in general in songs, in lyrics, you can get an impression that these are not really mechanical droids. They are more like replicants. They certainly do not look mechanical. So there is this whole issue of if someone looks like human and behaves like human, do they deserve human rights? Which the answer should be, of course, yes, but the world of Metropolis is not as friendly. And Janelle's work is often considered as part of Afrofuturistic movement. So this is the movement that empowers Black voices in science fiction. And also, so these narratives of Afrofuturism tend to be maybe slightly more optimistic or at least resilient. They are not dystopian, as dystopian as it is frequently in mainstream science fiction. And Afrofuturism is also a big presence in music, so it's often connected with optimistic sounds like funk, like hip hop, but it's not very heavy. Hip hop so like the whole thing is supposed to rather uplift you than bring you down. And I think that like many scholars agree on this, and I agree on this, that Janelle Monae is very Afrofuturistic in what she does. Okay, so this is a fragment, this is a screenshot of one of her videos, and I recommend you watch them after this presentation because they really flesh out this narrative. And you can see that there is also an allusion to Philip K. Dick and the original Blade Runner. So, do androids dream of electric ships? And this is the quotation, like, will you be electric ship or will you preach? And this, so it's nice. This reference to electric ship, it's repeating itself, like through some of the songs, like it's in more than one song. So it's really nice nod to Philip K. Dick and the idea of replicant. And it also shows us that, this is what Janelle thinks about when she creates her Metropolis narrative. This problematic, this issue of replicants and of humans that are not born as humans, but it's a matter of perspective. I think we should go back here to Donna Haraway, Cyborg Manifesto, because in academia, in humanities discourse, if we use big words, this is the first moment, one of the first moments when this figure of cyborg is used as a figure of not only oppression, but also fighting oppression and of a new future that's that goes beyond many of the oppressive binarities that rule our world. And so Donna Haraway described it, her own idea of cyborg in her ironic, quote unquote, manifesto. And for instance, she says that the cyborg is post-gender. So the cyborg is not limited by the idea of gender. It's not the cyborg is not limited by the idea of Oedipus complex, of father issues. That the cyborg is someone that really transcends the need to have an origin, a consistent origin, is someone that is committed to irony, intimacy, partiality. So cyborgs are not afraid of contradictions. Instead, they are playing with them, actually. And this figure is at once utopian and completely without innocence. I think every time I read this manifesto, I understand it differently, to be honest. But I think this is about, this shame that's connected with innocence, like in Western culture, that if you lose your innocence, you get ashamed, and cyborg is without shame. And also the cyborg is an entity that connects nature and culture. And culture here is also technology. So like these all things are connected into one being, and they do not have to be in conflict with each other. And I think that in Janelle Monae's case, like her Cindy Mayweather is, well, a clear representation of that. Also, in Cyborg Manifesto, it's not quoted here. The quote is not here, but Donna Haraway wrote something like towards the end that she imagines her cyborg and the first cyborgs that will emerge in our world to be very intersectional, so that they will come from minorities. And yeah, she meant LGBTQ minorities and Black minorities mostly. And well, it really correlates with Janelle Monae, like she's Black, that's hard to, that you can see that. And also Janelle Monae came out as bisexual and pansexual. I think she identifies with both of these labels. And so it was important because she was actually the first Black person in music industry to do it, at least in pop industry. And she's a woman, so that's another oppressed group, or at least, discriminated very often. And I really believe that, Janelle Monae is one of those people who are exactly like this figure of cyborg described by Haraway. And I'm not the only one who thinks that, because I found this really nice quotation in Afrofuturism 2.0 book that also called Donna Haraway Cyborg Manifesto. When I was talking about Janelle Monae, I was thinking not only about Cindy Mayweather, her character, but about all the characters that she embodies, because Cindy Mayweather like not the young character she created. This album, Monae's latest album, Dirty Computer, tells a different story, as I mentioned before, and it's even more direct in the message than the previous one, because here we have literally humans that are persecuted for being LGBTQ plus, for being Black, for expressing themselves freely, and they are called by this totalitarian oppressive system, they are called dirty computers, even if there's there is no one indication that would actually show that they are computers or androids. They are humans, but they are called androids, you know, by the system, because the system wants to dehumanize them in this way, and the system wants to clean them by taking away their memories. Very not optimistic premise. I won't spoil the ending because the album is one thing, but there's also a movie or emotional picture, as Monae likes to call it. And it's available on YouTube, this emotional picture, Dirty Computer. So I recommend, I really recommend it. It's not that long. It's very nice to watch, nice to listen. And there's also gonna be a book with stories that are happening in the world of Dirty Computer, and it will be released on my birthday next year. So yay, can't wait. Okay, I think I could go on, but you know, let's not drag ourselves. Let's go to the next subject. All three subjects, all three concepts are really closely connected. So if there's some overlap, please excuse me. But now let's talk about transhumanism. And this is a movement that's happening in this particular niche of academia and also of technological world for like 70 years now, almost 70 years now. The term was coined in 1957, and transhumanists believe that human beings should use technology and should use any technological mean that exists to improve themselves. And this may mean different things depending on which transhumanist you ask. Some transhumanists are, crazy about chips, for example, payment chips, or like identity chips. Some transhumanists will be more into, artificial body parts, like artificial eyes or some implants, and that's all very, very cyborgish. That's why I said it's gonna overlap a little bit. They believe it's, it's a good thing, and there's nothing to discuss about it, that if human can enhance themselves somehow, they should do it. And this concept is very libertarian. Like, I mean, transhumanists are libertarian. But there is also different concept of transhumanism that's, I think, more presented in media as transhumanism because it's more distinctive. And that's, like uploading yourself into cloud. And there is this very bad movie, Transcendence, with Johnny Depp, that's literally about that. Watch it for laughs, because it's not really good. This concept was also used in Cyberpunk 2077 again, and in Years and Years. This is a British mini drama. I think BBC was responsible for it. And there's this one character, Bethany, that wants to be transhuman. And actually, there is a very funny scene when her parents are looking through her browser history. Not nice, don't do that. And they see this question, am I trans? How to say I'm trans? And they think it's about transgender things. And they're like, oh yeah, happens. We will be supportive. But then they learn that she didn't mean transgender, she meant transhuman. So she wants to become data, and this very dramatic scene when she screams, "I want to become data," and they are not very supportive of that. And later on, it's, you know, it gets resolved, but the drama is really good. This one I recommend, actually. So this theme of uploading humans into cloud, into data, is also a part of transhumanism, although it's more science fiction, that, you know, like chips are enhancing yourself with artificial body parts. That's more like this organic part is more achievable, at least now. And yes, like I think that the artist that embodies transhumanist, some of transhumanist ideas most is Grimes. Maybe you're familiar with her. She's Canadian producer, musician, singer. She mostly, well, yeah, she plays electronics, art pop, synth pop, experimental, but it's all like computer based, digital based. And she was quite famous in, let's say, underground, maybe not underground, alternative music market. And recently she went mainstream. Like, I think that she went mostly mainstream because of her cooperation with Cyberpunk game, because she played a part there and she made some songs there, and that gave her a boost into, you know, mainstream, not just alternative mainstream. And she was also a judge on TV show Alter Ego, which is about creating digital avatars and performing music through digital avatars, which is very it's very, you know, in her style, let's say. And this is Grimes' discography. And I will mostly talk about the most recent CD, Miss Anthropocene, because I find it really interesting and fascinating, even though I wouldn't say I'm a fan. Let's just say that. But anyway, this idea, the idea that Grimes packed there are really interesting to ponder about. And this is, let's say, this is, you know, this mood board of inspirations for Grimes. So we have cyberpunk, but also like a lot of science fiction. We have William Gibson, we have Dune, we have a lot of Japanese pop culture here. Like, I think I mostly feel it in her vocals, that high-pitched, kind of artificially tuned vocals. Sometimes I feel like this is very, you know, that's very like Japanese pop, that she tries to emulate that. And also she uses references in her music videos. Okay, so let's talk about Miss Anthropocene. And the title is of course a pun, but it's also this Miss Anthropocene is anthropomorphic goddess of climate change and beauty queen composed of ivory and oil. And yeah, and also Grimes said that she wants to make climate change fun through this in this album, which caused a lot of controversy. And later, when the album actually came out, it turned out that there is not much climate change in it, at least, you know, not directly. She doesn't really speak about it directly. And but she invented some sort of pantheon, new pantheon for gods of modern world, and there is a lot of different angles in it. So it's more like about humans' reaction to climate change, or Grimes' reaction to climate change and all those changes that are coming with it. And here we have another reference to Blade Runner in Grimes' video. And this is another screenshot of Grimes' video. Like, it's the video Idoro, and I think it's a reference to William Gibson's book about this. Yeah, Idoro is this entity that was created as a virtual construct of celebrity, something like Hatsune Miku, but better, because the Idoro in Gibson's book was able to change her looks and kind of feed herself, and it was her. this construct was created as her in order to apply, to apply to male gaze, to appeal to men's audience. But anyway, like this entity was supposed to, connect with her audience and give them like some sort of personalized celebrity. And later on, Idoro Reitoe gains consciousness and fell in love with human, and she ultimately decided that she doesn't give a damn about this virtual world anymore, and she copied herself into bodies, not one but million artificial bodies, and went on to explore the world. And so Grimes has a song, Idoro. It's hard to say if it's about that exactly, but I think it's, at least the title connects the song with it, with the book. And that's like the first sign, I think, like the first, signal that Grimes is interested in this transhumanist discourse, because, because this is different concept than cyborg, this concept of intelligence going into the system of data. It's a little bit different. It's very much connected with the transhumanist way of thinking. Okay, this is like, if you don't really know what Anthropocene is, then it's I will just give you a brief definition so we can get on with it. Like, Anthropocene is a concept introduced to explain how humans influence the world, because like there was this observation that humans are impacting Earth on geological level. So that if you go and dig through Earth, you will see that, like the most layer closest to the surface is actually made of human trash and of byproducts of human activity. And so like the current geological era should not be called Holocene, but it should be Anthropocene, because that's how much we are impacting the Earth. And of course, it got very quickly, it's, it connected with climate change discourse, and yeah. And people are now trying to find a way out, or at least how to, how to live in this new environment that we created for ourselves. Once again, we are coming back to Grimes, and this was her campaign, her promotion of the album Miss Anthropocene. Global warming is good. Yeah, I mean, I understand why it was controversial. I don't think the controversy was justified with the album, not that much, but it was. Grimes, I think, as whoever is responsible for this slogan knew what they were doing. But going back to transhumanism, I got really interested in Grimes' side projects, let's just say. And one of those side projects is War Nymph. So it's an internet project that was supposed to become her digital avatar, but also independent from her in some way. When I read a lot of interviews with Grimes, and I'm still not sure if I follow her thoughts. I mean, some parts are understandable, like having digital body allows me to keep working through the later stages of my pregnancy. This is logical. But also she talked a lot about how she wants her, I guess, War Nymph to become independent from herself. So War Nymph would be like one entity, and Grimes would be completely another. And there was in the Instagram of the project, you could see like how War Nymph is animated, and that there are some attempts to give it autonomy in some way. like, you know, someone really tries to make science fiction into life. And this quotation from the interview, we've been looking outside of ourselves for the answer, but perhaps we are the answer. That's really the, you know, the peak of transhumanist thought, of transhumanist way of reasoning. Like, this is very, this movement is very concentrated on human experience, kind of narrowly defined, but you know, of human improvement, of human, on human body, but without really considering the environment. Because, like, from my experience with this movement, they mostly believe that humanity will somehow find a way, the technological way, to get us out of the Anthropocene, of the climate change. We'll just need to wait for, I don't know, cold fusion, or, you know, fusion engines, more atomic engines, things like that. Technology and science will find the answer. Which is a way of thinking, for sure. Not sure if I agree with this, but yeah, there is this optimism about humanity and about humanism and about the values of human being. And I think a lot of Grimes' work, not only in music, but also these side projects she digs in, is really about that. And she's really interested in, you know, digital avatars. She even was a judge in the TV show that's precisely about that. So yeah, I think she's the most transhumanist of our three for today. And the last part is posthumanism. Now, posthumanism can be understood in different ways, because you can understand it as transhumanism, or you can understand it a little bit differently, about like post-human, like, is it post-human or transhuman and ism, or is it post and humanism? So going beyond the human experience. And philosophically, there is this movement about going beyond personal experience, about beyond human as a subject, right? So, and it's also about, you know, like undermining a little bit this notion that we know how we work. So it's connected a lot with biology and, you know, like unconscious, with the way that biology affects us, even if we don't realize it. Like, for example, you know, like chemical stuff and hormone stuff, and, you know, like the way that the environment affects us. For example, the smog that literally induces depression. And so, like, in this philosophy, the human is not, you know, omnipotent, and the human doesn't know everything, and is not special. So it's going, you know, beyond this anthropocentrism. And this is a mood board for posthumanism, in this way of, you know, this post-humanism. So this going beyond humanism. I think it's the most difficult idea to portray in like classical texts of culture. So I have a little bit of like on, I think it's on my left, but I'm not sure. The Posthuman by Rosi Braidotti, and this is actually a philosophical book. And Rosi Braidotti is a researcher and scholar that really, you know, like, it's one of the biggest names in this post-humanist thought, understood as this going beyond humanism and other subjects. She takes a lot of Gilles Deleuze philosophy, which is very difficult, and I won't even go into it right now. But yeah, her work is very hermetic because of that, because she uses Deleuze's vocabulary, and it gets difficult. So, and this is mostly visible in, I think, in, you know, fine arts and in books. And you can see like spoilers, like different books here. There's Olga Tokarczuk, Polish novelists from 2018, Kawakami Hiromi, and Japanese literature. Japanese female authors are really into, you know, these themes and like leveling humans with other creatures. And you know, like on the slide, you can see my favorite story, my favorite book of this wave, let's say. But there's a lot of it in Japanese literature, seriously, especially like, you know, contemporary. And also I've included a screenshot of the movie Annihilation, which is also like a book adaptation. So like I said, it's really rooted in literature more than in visual media. We have Xenofeminist Manifesto that also touches the subject of posthumanism, and that like feminism shouldn't be only about human subjects, it should be also about, for example, animal subjects, right? That we human think we're so much better than animals, and posthumanism goes really against that notion. And I think Olga Tokarczuk also tries to kind of like reach for this post-human narrator, for this post-human subject in many of her books. Like she does it in different ways, she experiments with that. Okay, and in music, I think like the biggest posthumanist of all is Björk. By the way, Bjerk is an Icelandic pronunciation. If I switch back to Polish pronunciation by mistake, please, you know, correct me. But anyway, Bjerk she's not only star of 2010s. It would be unfair to call her contemporary artist in, like, you know, that she only created in the last 10 years. Her career is long and very impressive, but but I think that her post-humanist inspirations, like her post-humanist, you know, phase started in like went very big in 2010s, and we will talk about it in a moment. But as you can see, like Björk is really the star. She's got so many albums with bands and solo. She got so many awards. She also was, I think she won Golden Globe for acting, and it was nominated for to Oscars. And she's also activist, environmental activist. So, like, you know, I cannot really describe her in few words. And her inspirations are famously everything. So that's why I don't have a mood board for her inspirations, because she really touches all different subjects, like sexuality and environment and, you know, technology and being woman and so many different things. And like this post-humanist, you know, ideas are visible in her solo career since the very beginning, because Human Behavior is the first song she wrote for her debut album. I mean, I think she even wrote it with Sugar Cubes, her previous band, but they never finished that song, and so she took it, you know, to launch her solo career. And it's and here Bjerk tries to put herself into a mind of an animal that would study human behavior. So like it's the opposite of what we usually do. Like we are humans and we study other creatures' behaviors, but we can also be the subjects of study ourselves. Why not? You know, and the video clip is also about that, very trippy. And All Is Full of Love. This is I think this is the most famous Björk songs, because it was voted as her #1 when she wanted to put greatest hits album. And she asked, there was a poll among her fans, what's supposed to be the song #1, and this is the song. And the video is also very famous. Like you can see the two androids that are being constructed, and they are, you know, constructed with love, and they are making love to each other. And this video is even featured, like it has its own place in MoMA exhibition, like Museum of Modern Arts exhibition about Bjerk. And so you can see like the other photos, these are concept sketches, and this is like from MoMA exhibition. So this was really famous thing. And but you know, let's focus on 2010s and like the three most important main releases of Bjerk in the last 10-12 years is Biophilia, Vulnicura, and Utopia. And okay, I'm gonna probably nerd out a little bit because I just love it. And if we are talking about Biophilia, and Biophilia not so much, but Vulnicura and Utopia, we need to mention Arca. I'm kind of ashamed that I didn't make Arca my, you know, like my star number 4 for today's presentation, but she just dropped like, I think 4 or 5 albums in December 2021, so like few weeks ago, and I wasn't able to digest that and, you know, present it to you because it's a lot. It's like 60 plus songs at once. And it's important to talk about Arca because she's responsible for the sound of Vulnicura and Utopia. And if you listen to Arca and then you listen to these 2 latest Bjerk's albums, you will hear it. You will hear that this sonic level, this music level is really, that Arca really, you know, made her thing, made her sound there. And so I think it just, you know, we cannot not speak about this because it's very important contribution. And Arca is also a very interesting artist herself. She focuses on her queer experience and queer experience in general, and she puts it into music. And it's you know, it's difficult music. I mean, at least for me, it's complicated. There's a lot happening there. It's kind of alien. And there's a lot of like cyborgish, post-human, transhuman themes there. Like, so, you know, really, I recommend it, but I just want to, you know, give you a heads up that it's not pop. I mean, it is pop, but it's this difficult part of pop music. I'm rather ambitious. And okay, but let's go back to Björk because, like, okay, Arca is a co-creator of Utopia, but she mostly contributed to the sound, and the concepts are all Björk's. So I want to talk about that. But let's go back to Biophilia first. Biophilia is an album that oh my God, I always lack words how to describe it. Actually, she sings about Earth there, and Earth, like viruses, celestial bodies, geological activities. So this is like the surface, right? Like each song is dedicated to another natural phenomena, but it's also about her experiences. And for example, the song Crystalline, which is seemingly about crystals and growing crystals, is also about, you know, conquering claustrophobia, about growing into own person, about conquering anxiety. So this song, all of her songs on this album connect between natural phenomena and, you know, human internal landscapes and human experiences. And so it you know, wasn't really acclaimed critically. Like the consensus is that it was good album, but not as good, which I absolutely don't understand. I think it's brilliant. And like, sorry for getting personal here, but I'm a big fan. And and it's very conceptual because it was also created with an app that was supposed to teach people music. Like, so you see like fragments of the animation. These animations, each song had their own part in the app, and the animations were supposed to teach people how to construct music. So for example, Song the Moon had, if I remember correctly, the lesson about arpeggios, but it was also about teaching people about the natural phenomena, and also about teaching people psychology. So like, you know, like she really connected very different things in each song, and also constructed visuals for it and put it into app that never launched globally as far as I know, but it was used in Iceland to teach music to the kids. And I tried to install it, but it wasn't updated, so I would need to, you know, hack my phone to make the system older. And this was like, when I heard this album, I instantly connected it with this post-humanist philosophy, because Rosi Braidotti, in her book Posthuman, she writes about these three notions that if we want to go beyond the human subject and, you know, all this narrowness, and that, you know, like that, if we want to kind of transcend humanity and humanism as a construct, and that's incredibly narrow construct actually, because humans, you know, like women weren't really considered humans in a lot of cultures, and like neither did native people or Black people, and, you know, like, not to mention, you know, LGBTQ plus people. So, you know, like classical humanism is actually very elite notion and concept. And if we want to go beyond that and also help our planet, we need to consider like three different ways of becoming other. And so that was becoming the animal, becoming earth, and becoming machine. And like there's a lot of philosophical explanations behind, you know, these three concepts. Becoming earth was mostly about understanding global impact of human activity, if I remember correctly. But when I heard this album and I saw all these songs about crystals and, you know, tectonic movements and viruses and dark matters, I was like, oh my God, now I finally feel what it's like to become earth, even if I don't really understand it intellectually. So I think this is what this album does. And yeah, it's an experience. Later two works. So Volnikura is a kind of science fiction processing of Bjerk's divorce. And, you know, it's not really a secret. She mentioned that in her interviews. While Utopia is going beyond the divorce and living in a post-divorce world, and, you know, the transformation that goes with it. And I think we can go back and said a little bit, like if you look at the cover of Volnikura, like Björk here has this hole, you know, like wound in her chest, and she also has these spikes that are very sci-fi looking, but they also, you know, like it's kind of like hedgehogs or like plant spikes. So, you know, it's like her time to be with herself and not really let other people in. And the answer to that is this, is like this flower or this light in her chest that goes, you know, through this wound. And it's even, I think I'm paraphrasing her lyrics here. Like, I don't remember the title of this song, but in Utopia there was this lyrics, my wound has become the gate. And she sings about how she cares for others, like for some unspecified you, and because she's now healed and, you know, it's not a wound anymore, it's a gate. And I think it was the Gate song. Yeah, and in the music video, she has sex with a crystal robot or android. So it's like repetition of this song from '99, All is Full of Love. It's kind of coming back to it, but also it's like, you know, this new love that emerges. Like Utopia is kind of, Utopia is more sexual, I would say, than Vornicura or Biophilia. And yeah, and like the visual side of Bjerk's work is also very important. Like you can, when you watch her videos, you see that she experiments a lot with digital techniques, with becoming like this subject of change, of becoming other thing, maybe not becoming an animal, but becoming some sort of plant. Although I don't know, maybe like it depends how you interpret the you know the images you see. Like I don't really know what that is, but it's something organic. I feel it's a plant, but you could interpret it differently. I guess like a slug or something. And it's interesting because this is the video for the song Tabula Rasa, and she sings here like Tabula Rasa for my children. Let's break the chain of the fuck ups of the fathers. This is going back to Donna Haraway, who accidentally is also considered as a part of post-humanist, you know, tradition, even though she really didn't write that much about subjects and humanism. But this Cyborg Manifesto and her notion of cyborgs really influenced this this perception of, you know, how subjects do not have to be enclosed entities. And I feel like this, you know, like this breaking the chain of fathers' fuck-ups it correlates with this notion of the cyborg that is, you know, free of Oedipus complex, and that does not have really an origin. Or if the cyborg has an origin, it, you know, like the cyborg can reject it because it's not important that much. And yeah, and you can also see like other fragment of the lyrics here. It's time for us women to rise. Like I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but all three artists I'm talking about are really feminists, and not in this, you know, narrow, ignorant way. So, I mean, I'm not sure about Grimes, to be honest. I don't know how Grimes identifies herself, but I know that there is a lot of girl empowerment in her, in what she does. But Janelle Monae and Björk are, you know, like are talking a lot about feminism and in her works, and I think Janelle Monae also declares herself as feminist. So going back to Bjerk, like Bjerk really, like what she does transcends the way the world of music so much. I mean, this app of Biophilia. She also made this is a project for lobby, hotel lobby, and you know she gave the hotel the archive of her vocals and the AI is just like transforming them and patching them together in new ways, and it's depending on birds flying near the hotel, or the season, or the weather, and like crazy stuff. And it's called Skorpan. And here we can, like on the right, you can see Björk from her VR exhibition that she made. I think it was during Vornicura promotion, like Vornicura tour. And I just wanted to contrast this, you know, notions. On the left you have Robocop, so this is like classical, like very stereotypical cyborg, right? So you know, like a lot of metal and also very strong, like very physically enclosed in his body, and on the right is Björk, she's like, you know, like she's not enclosed, she's one with her environment, or at least like in this virtual rendition she is, right? And this is like the image, like this is the message she wants to kind of get through in this exhibition. So I think this is also like between transhumanism and posthumanism. Like transhumanism is very classical and stereotypical. Like it uses a lot of these old science fiction tropes, or like old, I mean 80s and before that. And posthumanism plays a lot with new weird, and we are, you know, this is Weird Fictions Research Group, so this is what we do. And like with different things, with different aesthetics and kind of different, you know, different philosophies a little bit. Okay, so before this is the last slide, but before I finish, I would just like to say like a few words of closing up. I think it's really interesting that all these three artists, you know, like their work correlates about, you know, they use these tropes of cyborgs, of transhumans, of posthumans, like this subject of human being that is somehow altered, that you know, like it breaks down this notion that human is, you know, an obvious, that humanity and humanism is an obvious choice. So it's the construction of humanism. Like I think they all do that to some extent. Maybe, you know, maybe you will like, for example, Janelle Monae's way better than Björk, or vice versa. But I think it's interesting that, no, and also it's interesting that those are female artists. There, of course, there are also guys who do sci-fi music, but it's a little bit different. They don't play with body that much and with, you know, this subject that much. It's usually more about stories of space and stuff. At least that's my experience with it. And I also like how they reach outside music, but they are still rooted in music, and you know, the music and the sound and the lyrics are very important, but they also try new media and try to expand their view, that it's, you know, like this, their vision are so rich that they cannot be contained in one project, which I think it's really fascinating.
Thank you, Asha, for a wonderful presentation and for Q&A. And that's all, folks. You know, have a nice evening, and see you next year.